We're going to turn the FYPod into Dan Savage's podcast real fast.
Dan's a listener. I've been on to the Dan Savage pod a couple times. He wanted me to come on but to talk about politics, and I was like, I will only come on if I can take sex questions. We can do politics, but
is Dan Savage a porn star?
No.
Oh yeah. See, your cultural references are from the 50s, but like, you know, your societal familiarity with a thing that happened in the 80s and 90s is still zero because you were born in 2000. Hey everybody, I'm Tim Miller.
I'm Cameron Kasky, and this is FYPod, the Bulwark's Zoomer show, where we get into all the new young people stuff. Like our friend, who I only know as Peter Twinklage. He's Don Lemon's Cam. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, Cam has recruited yet another white male bisexual, which will let you know that Cam's not as woke as he says, okay? Cam claims that he's the wokest white man in Gen Z, but when he goes out into the field to find guests for FYPod, he always is landing on white bisexual males for some reason.
First of all, I thought, in my defense, Peter, I thought you were fully gay. Second of all...
Bi guys can be twinks. Can they not?
Two things can be true. You're so right. Second of all, I just wanted to talk to Don Lemon's Cam, dude. Like, this is our Zoomer show, and I thought that, and Peter, you have a show on the Don Lemon Network where it's just you. There's no Don Lemon, but it does say at the bottom of the screen Don Lemon, right?
That is correct.
So in many ways, you are sort of Don Lemon's white twink avatar.
Well, should I be doing this to Cam actually? For people who haven't noticed, people who only come to the episodes that I'm on, I appreciate you. But Cam is working hard and we're spinning off FYPod. We're testing out different little spin-off ideas. So, you know, there's on the YouTube feed, we're just jamming with Cam only material. Cam and Friends, we're calling it. It's kind of like he's like the Pete Hegseth of Cam and Friends. He's
so while I'm doing a solo video, you put like property of Tim
Miller,
and Bill Crystal at the bottom.
Yeah, and like we could create like a little picture of me maybe with pearls on, and just that'll just be on the bottom of every social video you post.
I like it. It might boost the viewership. You never know.
Why do you do it? Why does Don do it? Is it
we saw how successful y'all were being with this show, and Don thought we need to snatch back those Zoomers before they go full fat.
Oh, you copied us?
Absolutely. Who hasn't been?
By the way, I was also the first guest of White Don Lemon Hour.
That's true. I've had some great pals on. Jack Cocciarella, mutual friend of all of ours.
Okay. How are things going on the spin-off show?
Things have been very busy recently, so I haven't done an episode in a couple of weeks, but it's been fun. I think I found my sea legs.
It's all about consistency in the content game, Peter. All right. I know a little bit about you because I read your New York Times column about your dad taking you to Hooters, and I want to get to Hooters in a second. But for people who haven't read that, can you do the first date, rapid fire TLDR? Like, where'd you come from? How did you find Don Lemon?
For sure.
Et cetera. Dark room.
Yeah, I was a campaign reporter way back in the day, many moons ago in 2016. I leveraged that into a host of different...
How old were you? Were you the campus
I was reporter? The campus reporter,
For what college?
Yale.
Oh, I like the embarrassment with which you said Yale. I appreciate that. You should be fucking embarrassed about saying Yale. I like that. You paused. You thought about whether you should say it or not. You're like, do I say it's in New Haven?
You asked.
I know. I liked it, but I saw the wheels turning in your head. Okay, continue. I'm sorry. So you're a campus reporter at Yale.
Yes.
Continue.
Leveraged that into a couple of newsroom gigs, some here in the States, one internationally, which was really fun. And the Mail and Guardian in South Africa, specifically Johannesburg.
I'm sorry about what's happening to your people down there.
It's tough.
That week for us, by the way,
friends who are being targeted?
Not targeted. I mean, my newsroom was overwhelmingly black, but they've just.
Do you know any of the Afrikaners that we have welcomed here?
I'm proud to say I do not. But yeah, I was working in South Africa for a while. Then went to CBS News, was there for a couple of years. Then was Mehdi Hassan's and Ayman Mohideen's monologue writer at MSNBC for a couple of years.
Fucking gang right there, by the way. Like, those are my boys.
Oh, wait. I didn't realize that you were like a shit lib.
I'm all over the place, dude. Like,
my perception of your content is very kind of abundancy. And here you are writing monologues for Mehdi. What's the true? Who's the true you, Peter?
I'm a chameleon. I am the talented Mr. Ripley. Through and through.
I went on Mehdi's show a couple years ago, and we've just stayed in touch online for years. Finally met him in person almost a year ago now.
Such a nice guy.
He looks at me and he's like, "Oh, I thought you were shorter." I was like, "Thanks, Mehdi. I'm not even like tall.
I guess there are worse things you can say to someone.
You do give short.
I give short spiritually, yeah. A lot of people who have only met me on Zoom meet me and they're like, "Hey, leave a comment down below, everybody, for the algorithm on how tall you thought I was."
No, Dante, bleep out when he said the actual height a couple seconds ago, and then people can guess in the comments.
Tim, what are you, 6'1"?
Yeah, 6 foot now, almost. If you round up.
Good for you. Anyway, we were talking about white genocide, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, we were. What were you covering down there with the Afrikaners?
The Zoopta scandal. 2 Indian-born tech tycoons had slowly bought up pretty much 50-60% of the South African government under a polyamorous, not actually, scratch that, not going to bash the polycules, but a polygamous Jacob Zuma, who, effectively allowed these 3 gents actually, to take over the entire government.
Really?
Yeah. Big deal at the time.
So it was three Indian men?
I believe so.
With like many wives? Is that?
No. Jacob Zuma, the South African president, is the polygamist, not the Indian tech tycoons.
Got it.
And then from there went to MSNBC, and then had a really wonderful few years there. Mehdi ended up leaving MS, and I found myself as a cart without a horse. And Don Lemon reached out, and I thought, hell yeah, dude, let's try this. Let's go into these
lemon heads.
Indeed, the lemon heads.
Do you feel like you're a lemon head?
How could I not be a lemon head?
Are you getting recognized on the street by all the lemon heads? Are lemon heads like coming up to you and throwing candy at you or anything?
I will say there have been 2 occasions, and I don't know whether this is flattering or humiliating, but there has been an older woman who has sort of done a double take and then come up to me and said, "Are you Don Lemon's white boy?"
I mean, Tim, is that not how I described him when I told you we were having him on the show?
Yes, you did. And I was like, "You mean Peter Twinklage?" You were like, "Yeah." So I was like, "Great, let's do it." Wow, that's nice. I would take it as a positive.
Yeah.
I mean,
they
sometimes,
couldn't have been nicer.
I don't know. What is your racial heritage?
I'm pretty aggressively Caucasian. Yeah.
Okay.
Might be a
kind of like the Afrikaners. I did notice you mentioned the polyamory happening down there, and I got to tell you, with the discourse, there's I don't know if you noticed, but they're on the mayor's race. There's a new mayor in New York. I don't know. Cam wasn't really following the race that closely, but a guy named
is that guy that Bill Kristol's tweeting about how much he likes.
Yeah, Zoran Mdani won actually, and we had interviewed him, and there was a lot of discourse about one of the questions. No discourse about the polycules. We discussed polycules with now the guy most likely to be the next mayor of New York City,
which brings
us
to
discourse
our
around that
next topic, which is Eric Adams and the fact that it's Adams time, baby. It's time to watch this guy cook. He's coming to save New York from people who met their wife on Hinge, and he's fucking locked and loaded. Let's take a look right now at Eric Adams showing us how to search our children's bedroom for guns.
You can look in a jewelry box. A jewelry box of this nature, maybe a simple jewelry box, but if you look through it closely, you don't know what your child may be hiding. For instance, a gun. Look at picture frames and behind them, cameras. Try to determine what's taking place. Behind a picture frame, you can find bullets. You should always, when your child brings in his popular knapsack with many different locations, look through it to see what exactly is your child carrying in addition to a book. Something simple as a crack, something simple as a baby doll. Could be just a baby doll, but also it could be a place where you can secrete or hide drugs. Run your hands over the pillows and see if you feel anything that's unusual. Like a pillow like this with a button is a perfect invitation to hide something. And I felt something bumpy. I would reach in, see what it is. It's inside your bookcases. It could be more than just books. Perfect place to hide cocaine.
All respect in the world to Nathan Fielder. That is the performance artist of all time. At least the best living performance artist.
He is, with Trump in the beginning of his monstrous reign, there was still, even though he was already being evil on immigrants and stuff, there was still a degree of, oh, gee, this guy would be a fun hang.
Yes.
Trump.
Never for me. Just for the record, never for me.
Really?
He never made me laugh once. No, I always hated Donald Trump.
Because
go ahead. I understand other people.
You were coming at it from inside the party, so you were like, this guy is turning us into a mockery. Whereas I was there like, oh my god, he's still funny. Now that Trump is obviously nobody anybody would want to be near because he's a terrible fascist who's even worse than his first administration. Eric Adams is that reprehensible politician who would be a fucking good hang. I don't know if you all saw, dude, like night after we bomb Iran was at some sort of hookah bar where there were like belly dancers posted up, just like smacking a monster vape. And I was like, I would love to be there with Eric Adams.
He's a great hang. Yeah, I actually went and looked behind my daughter's pillow to see if there was anything earlier. And it turns out there was like a 2-day-old milk, which was pretty disgusting, I would have to say. But I did not see any. There's no secretions, no
What's the
gouts.
type of milk that the Maha people are into again?
It's just raw milk. They like raw milk. No pasteurization. Louis Pasteur, part of the deep state. It all started to go awry back then. We were much healthier before we pasteurized milk or people got any vitamins.
Real. Well, listen, I have been in New York for a year. I've seen sort of the results of the Adams administration. I personally would like to rate Eric Adams as a mayor F. Let's take a look at
come on.
Let's take a look at how Eric Adams views the letter F.
I would rank him higher than F.
We utilize the letter F.
I saw this.
We utilize the letter F for faith.
Yes.
Our opponents use the letter F for profanity.
Yes.
So we need to stay focused. No distractions and grind. Focus, no distractions and grind. Focus, no distractions and grind. Focus, no distractions and grind. We're straight ahead.
Are you trying to make me be pro Adams on this podcast?
I was going to say, I think this is Eric Adams.
The audience?
I think this is Eric Adams joining the resistance, calling out Trump for dropping that F-bomb. What was it, on Tuesday? After the Iranians and the Israelis broke that ceasefire he brokered? That was going to win him the Nobel Peace Prize.
Do you think he was talking about fuck or the F slur? Because this is something that I really have a bone to pick with YouTube about, which is we cannot say the F slur on this podcast, or else we'll be demonetized. We will not be able to get the ad money that we have earned because YouTube has decided that is inappropriate language. And during fucking Pride Month, I feel like we should be able to say it if we want. All right, and I feel like we should
get even more monetized.
Yeah,
saying it.
That's what I would say. And so I am a little annoyed by that. The Eric Adams thing. I guess my question for you two is. There's obviously this excitement for Zoran, and I don't want to salt anyone's game. I don't want to yuck anyone's yum out there.
Don't upset though, Crystal.
The youth of New York, the guys bumming cigarettes in Greenpoint, or the people whose parents paid for them to go to liberal arts colleges, and then they moved to New York to live with 3 roommates. And not do any income. Like those folks were crushing for Zoran. And I'm very happy for them. But do you sense, was it beyond, like, did you go to any of the parties? Like was it beyond that?
Wait, you acting like Zoran only won because of that crowd? Because if you look at the demographics and the results.
He did not do well with the under 50K people.
Yeah, Cuomo got the richest and the poorest New Yorkers.
He was crushing in Greenpoint.
It's not like the fucking blue hair baristas.
He was crushing in Hell's Kitchen. He crushed in Chelsea. And so I'm just trying to get, like, what was the, like, on the street, like, what was the feeling? Was it just like gays and dirtbag hipsters, or like, were you feeling more happening?
I would say, and okay, let me first make one caveat, and that is that I don't think that Democrats should walk away from this primary with some new grand strategy of politics. I think that Andrew Cuomo is a uniquely vile breed of uncharismatic megafauna. And the reason why Andrew Cuomo lost is because his name is Andrew Cuomo. That said, I think there are some takeaways and some things that Zoran did incredibly well. who animated, or rather that animated and energized a ton of voters that do not normally go to the polls. He is young and charismatic, read hot. He has a great, or rather he had a great digital operation that clearly reached voters who are not regular, I don't know, participants in New York
I'm
politics.
going to plus that and say that that's bullshit because...
Okay. Hold on. Before you plus, I'm going to read Peter Twinklage's actual tweet about how he assessed Zoran's victory, and then you can weigh in on where he was wrong. The Dems' takeaway should be their candidates, like Zoran, should be anti-system, talk about affordability, be on every podcast. Shout out Zoran. Thanks, bro. And run young, charismatic, hot candidates. Mm-hmm. So is that what? So you don't think that's it, Kim? You don't think the special sauce was his hotness and his willingness to go on FYPod?
It's not like this guy Andrew Cuomo only lost because he's Andrew Cuomo. Like, look, I do agree the Democrats should have a grand strategy here, which is don't run the worst prick ever,
sure,
and maybe you'll win. But also, it's like Cuomo voters couldn't explain what they were voting for other than Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo didn't run on something. Zoran was.
He didn't run. Period.
He didn't run. Period. He didn't talk
nowhere.
to the media. He didn't come on FYPod. He didn't do anything he should do.
But
also, nobody, even his fans, couldn't explain what he was running on other than the fact that, he's a fighter. Which, by the way, when ICE comes knocking on people's doors, he's sure as fuck not going to fight them because his campaign was funded by people who directly profit from the people who make money off of ICE. Mm-hmm. But it's like Cuomo wasn't running on an agenda. His literally the closest thing I could find to a platform for Andrew Cuomo was those 13 women were liars. Like, that's what he was running on. I don't know what he was going to do about you know what else I knew? I knew that he used ChatGPT for his housing plan. So it's like,
I know that his
takeaway, don't run the worst prick ever. Another takeaway is like, if you're running on issues that people can very simply cite and say, here's 3 things that this person's going to do, no matter what the issues are, it's going to be a better campaign strategy. The first time I ever came and did a video with Tim asked me who I would have run in 2024 for the Democrats, which is why it's so fucking funny that I get characterized as this Molotov cocktail throwing leftist at the Bulwark when my 2 answers were Kamala Harris if she had enough time to prepare and Beto O'Rourke, because I'm a fucking commie.
You're kind of a commie. You have some commie tendencies.
With the Harris campaign, I had a harder time explaining her agenda than I did explaining Trump's agenda. Trump's agenda, I was able to boil down to like 5 bullet points, and they were all fucking reprehensible bullet points, and they were disgusting, but they were simple things I could say really quickly. Whereas with Harris, even when I read about it and I read the articles and I was watching social media, I was trying to figure out a way to clearly communicate to my Zoomer friends who were not bought into this why she was the choice. I couldn't really put it in a clear and concise way. So whether or not you're a fucking communist lettuce guy who wants Zoran to let Trotsky run our grocery stores, guess what? That was something you could say he was going to do. With Cuomo, the only thing you could say is that you're allowed to do that stuff if you're Italian.
Can I turn the pod on you two for a second? I have a question because Cam raised something really interesting. I was listening to a Bulwark pod earlier this week. Thanks. And I think that there's a really interesting schism here between the JVLs of the world and the Matt Iglesiases of the world, where Iglesias fundamentally believes that American voters, vote and operate based on policy, and they want plans, and they make up their minds based on what different politicians offer them. And I'm sure I don't need to tell you, Tim, or you, Cam, but JVL thinks that Americans are Cletus, and everything is based on vibes. Where would you fall on that spectrum?
Well, I kind of want to throw it back on YouTube, so I'll give my answer briefly. I think that vibes matter a lot. And that is what worries me as somebody who's a centrist at heart. And I'm interested in your guys' take on this. Like, I don't know if that's true, actually, that a centrist could have gained the amount of energy that Zoran had if they just were hot and went on podcast and also had 3 clear issues that people knew. Maybe. I'm not saying no. I worry about that. I don't know. But I do think that there's a minimum bar of having to have some kind of thing people can grab onto. I do think that Kamala's and Hillary's message, frankly, was too vague. And so I think you have to have, I don't think you need to be a policy dork. Like having white papers like Elizabeth Warren, like I have a plan for that. That is not necessary. But you do have to have like 3 things, as Cam said, that people know about you. So I think it's like a little bit of both. But I don't know, man. I'm not. Well, what do you guys think? Could somebody have done the Zoran thing? Like, let's say Zoran's out of the race, put him aside, and then Cuomo run against like a 33-year-old Ezra Klein. Like, could 33-year-old Ezra Klein have had the same excitement as Zoran if he had 3 center left issues? What do you guys think?
I don't think Ezra.
He's hot.
He's hot. I don't think he has the aura though. I don't think he has the.
Okay, well, imagine he had a little more aura.
I'm of JVL school of thought. I think it's 80% vibes, 10 to 20% policies. And I think that you need to have, say, a basket of left-leaning, democratically acceptable policy positions. And then you need to have 1 or 2 or maybe 3, as you were saying, Tim, big issues that really stand out. I was just listening to Alyssa Slotkin earlier today talk about how she wants to ban cell phones, K through 12, period, in schools. I think it's great.
That?
And I think that's something that catches attention.
Where are you on that, Cam? Should we ban cell phones in schools? What do you think?
I'm a cell phone libertarian. I think that banning cell phones in schools is completely reasonable. Yeah. I think it's complicated because a lot of schools don't have good infrastructure for a lot of schools don't have good infrastructure for a lot of things, but emergency preparation for something like a school shooting, we need our cell phones because there aren't a lot of built-in systems at different public schools where if there's a shooting on this side of the school, other people are going to be able to know about it. And that's something that a lot of school safety advocates have been working for is panic buttons, different things that they can use with the phone system, something inside the schools where you can make people aware that there's a mass shooter present. And with me, like I had my cell phone on me. That was how my parents knew that I was still alive and everything. But generally speaking, it's like the phones in the schools are a fucking disaster. So I think that I have 2 points, which is number 1, ban the cell phones. Number 2, make sure that if there's a fucking gun there, the teacher is able to inform the rest of the school very simply and quickly. So
I want to let you finish here, and then I'll get your answer, Cam. So do you think that some whatever center left? I genuinely don't know the answer to this because I feel like as I'm a political, like I haven't been in Democratic primaries. Like, couldn't center left hot 33-year-old who's running on banning cell phones and I don't know, like building 2 million houses and giving people free something, could that person do it? Maybe.
I don't know. I was saying a little earlier that in my main writing beat is heterodoxy. And I feel like we're in a moment right now where any Democrat who's really going to catch on and capture the nation's attention in some way needs to be running directly at the Democratic Party.
Like against it, you mean?
Yes, correct. Which is not to say that they should just bash Democrats until the cows come home. But I think a lot of the big national figures that we've seen rise in the last year and a half, 2 years, are all folks who in one way or another plant their flag in one aspect of Democratic policy, in Democratic pedagogy, and just hit away at them, hack away at them.
Yeah, fucking 18 years. What do you mean 2 years? That goes back to
Sure.
Obama. Obama ran against the Democratic Party on Iraq and other stuff.
Absolutely.
What do you think, Cam? Could the youth have gotten excited for somebody that was a little less DSA-ish, or was the DSA element central to why the youth were excited about Zoran in New York?
I mean, people are talking about Zoran's victory and they're saying like, oh, it's in deep blue New York. Of course, it's going to happen in deep blue New York. And I understand that instinct and everything. But if you look at these fucking rallies where AOC and Bernie were getting 1 trillion people to pull up, including like the Gen X white moms that otherwise can't fucking stand those people, getting giant crowds of people who are not the blue-haired baristas that everybody likes to characterize as the Bernie and AOC supporters. They're getting fucking white moms to show up. They were doing this in deep red districts. There
are a handful of liberal white moms, Cameron. It's not 100. Trump didn't get 100% with white moms.
A lot of liberal white moms. Sorry if there's any Bernie Sanders liberal white moms in the comments. I see you. I appreciate you. I love you. But when I think of a Bernie and AOC rally getting a ton of people to show up, I think of blue hair baristas. But Bernie and AOC were getting Gen X and up, white people, moms, to come out and support their socialist, populist, commie shit in red districts, in deep red districts, in places where moderates like to pretend someone like that would never stand a fucking chance. I think vibes are important. I think that when we get the message that populism is the way to win, it's hard to see that and go, actually, we should run bigger nerds. I think it's 100% vibes. I think it's 10% luck. I think it's 20% skill. I think it's 15% concentrated power of will. I think it's 5% pleasure, 50% pain, and 100% reason to remember the name. And that name is Bill Crystal.
Charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. I don't know what that was a reference. What was that? Is that a Jay-Z song or something?
Actually, I don't know who the rapper was.
Cam, can I ask you a question?
Dante, can we get the name of the rapper? Cameron is Ari Melbering right now.
Fort Minor, 2005, everybody.
Cam, who do you think is a bigger kingmaker in the Democratic Party, AOC or Jim Clyburn?
Stop. Pause. You're gonna answer that, but you just timmed me. All right. I was training you on how to deal with MSNBC interviews where you get asked a question and then you just give them the shit that you had already prepared in your brain. And you just did that to me. And this is a fucking pod where we're hanging. And so I asked you specifically, could hot Ezra Klein have gotten the same momentum as Zoran? Or did it have to be a DSA? Could it have been a hot center-left 33-year-old? Ezra's older than that, but he looks young. What do you think?
I think it's about what he was running on as opposed to how he was proposing to solve it. He was running on affordability, on access to different things, and if a 30-something-year-old Ezra Klein built the fucking abundance pill messaging about the problems that were actually affecting New Yorkers, they could have very well had a shot. I just don't know. What I do know is that Cuomo wasn't doing that.
Okay, the shot is a different question. My question is, with the vibes with your pals. I'm talking about your pals.
I don't really know.
Were your buddies that were excited about Zoran, that were liking your tweets, your Zoran pilled tweets, like did those people, were they just for him because he was DSA, or were they for him because he was like anti-Cuomo, he was young, he had energy? Like, how would you assess?
I know people who are not fucking DSA pilled who were about Zoran. Zoran was running a campaign on hope and the future in a political party that is obsessed with the past. The Democratic Party is obsessed with chasing what we were doing fucking 12, 15 years ago. The Democratic Party is obsessed with maintaining the status quo that has brought us Donald Trump. Zoran was saying we're going to do things differently, and young people are way more interested in somebody coming in and saying we're going to do things differently than somebody saying, no, actually what we were doing before when I killed all those senior citizens worked. And this isn't just a Cuomo thing. Obviously the killing senior citizen thing is targeted at Cuomo, but it's like my friends weren't excited about Zoran because he was fucking Stalin pilled. They were excited about Zoran because Zoran was inspiring hope instead of cultivating fear.
I don't think he's from the Stalin wing of the Socialist, but I'm not sure. Okay, Peter, now you can. What were you asking about? If AOC or Jim Clyburn?
Yeah, who do you guys think is the bigger kingmaker within the Democratic Party today? AOC or Jim Clyburn?
I think it depends on where. Like I think.
Sure, but I mean, in general, who's 51%? Who's 49%? Who's the bigger kingmaker?
I mean, AOC hasn't really put her little special Tinkerbell dust on anyone yet, really. So we don't know.
Well, the DSAers were really pissed that she did not endorse Zoran for a week.
AOC did the thing that a smart politician does. I agree. Have no issues with AOC on this. This is not a criticism, but AOC got on that Zoran bandwagon
right when people were paying attention.
The train was out the station. She did not make him happen. She endorsed him like 3 weeks before the election. He was rolling before she came on board.
I don't really know the Clyburn thing. It's hard for me to engage in Clyburn discourse because if you are doing anything other than worshiping at his altar, you are a racist. I don't know anybody who is positioned as more above criticism than Jim Clyburn. If Jim
sounds like you have some criticisms of Jim Clyburn. Let's hear them.
If Jim Clyburn sneezed in your fucking face and you said, "Excuse me, please turn your head around," boom. Everyone on Twitter is going to call you a fucking racist. But listen, here's everything you listeners at home need to know about Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn was on television within the past 6 weeks saying that Joe Biden has the mental capacity to have served a second term. Anyone who has any questions about Jim Clyburn, for me could ask Joe Biden and see if he remembers the fucking question.
I wish he were still alive.
Yeah, exactly. Joe Biden is with his Uma.
Just want to be very clear. There was no criticisms of Jim Clyburn there. We all honor Jim Clyburn. We're going to put a bust up to him. We're thinking about updating the FYPod graphic, and we might include him in there. I don't know.
Nice.
We'll see.
Oh yeah. Go. By the way, I don't think Jim Clyburn has done anything wrong in his entire life. And
Perfect,
when he put his support behind fellow person who doesn't live in New York City, Andrew Cuomo, I said, okay, those 13 women must have been liars.
Agreed.
Oh boy, Peter, did we have any other Zoran discourse to cover, or should we move on to other topics?
I don't think so, except that I would love to toot my own horn that the grand dam of the Democratic Party, Mother herself, Liz Smith, did endorse my takeaway from the Zoran race.
Smith. I knew things were getting hinky when Liz Smith was telling me she was ranking Zoran. I might have just broke some news right now on FYPod. I don't know if that's public or not. Sorry, Liz, but I mean, she is like not a popular figure among the DSA crowd in New York City. She's a very popular figure, with me and like at bars and stuff, but among the DSA crowd, not very popular. So she's for Zoran. That tells you something.
You asked if we had any further Zoran discourse, and this is a perfect new opportunity for me to not only tell my Liz Smith story, but also plug the new FYPod channel. So I regularly do videos for the new channel talking about sociopolitical stuff with my ex-girlfriend, Ellie Schnitt, who is a wonderful commentator.
I love her.
Was a wonderful girlfriend. Absolutely only the nicest things to say about her.
You kids can't make it. Who can?
It's tough. We're both the one that got away. I was with Ellie Schnitt, fellow sociopolitical commentator, when we were dating, probably exactly 4 years ago, because it was Teddy Goff's Pride party. Shout out Teddy Goff. No, it wasn't Pride, actually. It was a different night. We were all hanging out, and Liz Smith was there. And I had seen Liz Smith on Twitter. I knew she was associated with Mr. Pete Buttigieg in one way or another. I wasn't keenly aware of who Liz Smith was. I was 20. I was still figuring everything out. I was closeted. My girlfriend at the time, Ellie, friend of the Bulwark, borrowed Liz Smith's lip gloss. Mm-hmm. And then Ellie and I kissed.
So it's like you've kissed.
Eskimo brothers, sisters.
Yeah.
Something spiritual like that. But Liz Smith and I will always share that special connection.
I love that
and
for
that,
you.
I've got to hand it to her.
I'm feeling the romance right now in the room. Well, I guess we probably have gone a little far before crediting David Hogg for the victory, for the Zoran victory.
I mean, we have to.
I mean, he did. He came in big in the last 3 days.
He came in big. He saw a moment. He fucking pounced.
The youth were like, anytime I say anything bad about David Hogg, it is I have a 62-year-old woman that sends me an angry message that's like, the youth love him. Do not say a bad thing about him. And you're right, ma'am. The youth do love him. My final thought on Zoran is like Bill Kristol. I don't know, Peter, did you go? Wait, I'm a bad host.
What
was your ranking, Peter? What was your ballot? What was your ranked choice ballot?
So I'm actually not registered to vote in New York City. I travel quite.
You're an illegal voter? You might not. We have to stop this. You're illegally voting in a place where you don't reside?
Just cut it right now. I endorsed Zoran. I was not able to vote.
Okay, you're for Zoran. Yeah. Like Bill Kristol tweeted that he's so annoyed at the criticisms of Zoran from the right, including all the racist fucks that want to deport him. Multiple members of Congress now want to deport him, and that he's becoming anti Zoran, and that's where I'm landing too, which is I think is a very nice and comfortable place to be.
Alhamdulillah, brother Kristol, we see you.
All right, Hooters. Do we have something else to talk about besides Hooters? Oh, you want to talk about Pete Hegseth for a second? We wanted to love up on Jen Griffin. You want to do that?
Yeah.
Do we have the video? We have to put it in post. Do we have the video? I'll set it up. We'll put it in a post. Jen Griffin, the last Japanese soldier at Fox News doing real journalism, their foreign affairs correspondent, asked former colleague, maybe not sober colleague at times, weekend Fox and Friends co-host Pete Hegseth, who now runs our military, about I don't know, something. Let's watch.
I've seen that suggests that we didn't hit exactly what we wanted to hit in those locations.
That's not the question, though. It's about highly enriched uranium. Do you have certainty that all the highly enriched uranium was inside the Four Dome Mountain, or some of it, because there were satellite photos that showed more than a dozen trucks there 2 days in advance. Are you certain none of that highly enriched uranium was moved?
Of course, we're watching every single aspect, but Jennifer, you've been about the worst, the one who misrepresents the most intentionally. What the president says. I'm familiar.
I about the ventilation shafts on Saturday night. And in fact, I was the first to describe the B-2 bombers, the refueling, the entire mission with great accuracy. So I take issue with that.
I appreciate you acknowledging that this was the first the most successful mission based on operational security that this department has done since you've been here, and I appreciate that.
She just cucked him hard.
I see this all the time. Oh, if this person did this, double standard, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of a tired thing for me, but it's like, I watched that video and I'm like, man, if a woman said the shit that Hegeseth was just saying, if a woman was like, you've been about the worst, like everybody would be saying the most sexist shit about she's on her period and everything. But Hegeseth just gets to bitch out like that. And it's just totally, I guess that's what we want in our officials.
Cunt.
I don't want to waste too much time on him. Just fuck that boozing asshat with multiple posters.
There's nothing wrong with boozing.
Fourth. True. Maybe not when you're Secretary of Defense, but c'est la vie. But fuck him and his posters of his third, fourth, or fifth wife. I've lost count in his office within the DoD. I do want to talk about Jennifer Griffin, though, only because I referenced this towards the top of the pod. When I was a campaign reporter, I found it very quickly. It's a pretty miserable job. You get maybe 6-ish hours of sleep per night. You don't eat very much. You just hopscotch between different high school gyms across the country. And as like a plucky, obnoxious little upstart, most people did not have a time of day for me. The only two folks actually who ever had even a modicum of patience were your buddy, actually, Tim, Peter Hamby, who was so wonderful and took a lot of time out of his day while we were at the GOP nominating convention to just chat with me. He was wonderful. And then Jennifer Griffin, who I met at a number of aforementioned high school gyms and would literally share her desk space with me, which is a rare commodity. And she was just the kindest woman. And for those of you who aren't familiar with her work, she is one of the most respected national security reporters in the business. She's just great. And fuck Pete Hegseth.
She's crushing it. I want to move on to Hooters, but I'd already seen the clip, so I was kind of monitoring my my little social media here while Jennifer Griffin was owning him, and I got this post. Some people apparently, you can't make anybody happy in the Zoran discourse. You're either too nice to him or too mean to him. This person thinks I've been too nice to him, apparently. So I'm about to be Andrew Cuomo. She spelled it wrong. She Cuomo'd it, or he. I don't know. This person. So Mdani, wrong, is a non-carceral anarchist, as well as a global intifadist, puberty-blocking advocate. And are you sure Mdani is best for New York? These people have lost their mind. Like this is what's turning me into an anti Zoran, I think.
It's Zoran derangement syndrome, man. What the fuck did anybody think was going to happen? Like a Muslim could literally like release a public statement that says, gee, the weather's nice out here. And people would be like, that is a jihadist. Like that's how it works in this country. A Muslim could say, I preferred the Donner cut of Superman 2 over the theatrical release because the theatrical release had a tonal imbalance to it. And somebody could be like, oh, so you're saying that every single Jew in the world should get killed.
Cam, to that point, there was a great tweet. Unfortunately, I don't know the person who sent it out, but it read something like Zoran : free buses, ! Reporter : even for Hamas ?
Yeah, I saw that one.
Good stuff.
They were listening to Chapel Roan at the victory party. I thought that was pretty cringe. Do we have any, I want to close with your Hooter stories, but do you have any Don Lemon stories for us first? Like any behind the scenes? Like what's it like? Does he have any Bill O'Reilly moments where he's starting to scream? Does he struggle with technology?
I wish I had some gossip. He's just a deeply human guy.
Deeply human?
Yeah. Well,
like
when
what does
you
he text? Does he text you good night? Do you get like good night texts? Is he sensitive? Like Cameron is very sensitive with me, and I sometimes feel like I'm maybe a little distant. Is he sensitive with you?
I think we should air out that dirty laundry, Tim. I think that's what we should do for the remainder of this episode.
You and me, or Peter and Don?
Both at the
Porque
same
no
time.
los dos.
Both at the same time without Don
okay.
to defend himself.
Okay, is Don a little distant, or is he checking in with you about your feeling?
Don's a great guy. No, we're a very small operation. I am sort of his executive editorial producer. We have a great gal named Nikki, who is his executive technical producer, and then we have Andy, who is sort of an auxiliary technical guy, and that's it. It's a very small team.
What about the man on the
Tim
street?
Miller's executive editorial producer, by the way.
That is not true.
Editorial that comes from Tim Miller is because it went through me.
That is not true. What about the man on the street stuff? Who's doing that?
That is a different operation. That's the social guys. Yeah,
Who's dressing him for the man on the street interviews?
I couldn't tell you that. I don't.
Wait,
Have
Don
you given him
Lemon
any
does Billy on the Street vids?
Yeah,
He does.
Have you ever given him any feedback on his wardrobe, sartorial feedback?
I'm not that type of guy. I wish I was.
You're not a clothes guy?
Not really. I mean, what am I wearing?
What type of gay are you? What are your most stereotypical gay traits?
Love abundance. Big fan. Derek Thompson, so glad you're at Substack.
What exactly?
Abundance of many things.
Abundance of cock. But do you have no stereotypically gay traits? You don't like Lady Gaga or
I've listened
musical
to her on a
theater
run.
or
Not a theater
sewing?
gang. No, I'm a pick-me. I'm just a pick-me.
Just a pick me guy.
Just a pick-me.
You do post thought pictures. I noticed that. So that's I guess.
Wait, I'm sorry. So are you gay or bi?
I'm bi, but I definitely lean more in one direction. Kinsey 6. I think.
The Instagram is telling a different story. The Don Lemon outfits, though, I do want to talk about that. I know you're not a clothing guy, but he's going to the gym. Like like the shirts are tight, and he's showing off the guns.
Yeah.
Does he talk about that at all, or is that just kind of a subtext? Does he talk about his?
I just think post CNN life has served him really well. I think
he is looking a little youthful. His skin looks good, like like he's moisturizing. He looks fresh, young.
He's killing
weight of the world off his shoulders. Doesn't have that makeup, the CNN makeup.
This is true.
You have no gossip. You can't come on the show and not have like a single piece of Don Lemon gossip.
Dude, when I went on Don's show a couple months ago, if he had asked me for Tim Miller gossip, I would have been able to think of something. I don't know what it would have been necessarily, but I wouldn't have not given some Tim Miller gossip.
Oh, you should have asked me beforehand, Cam. I could have come up with something.
To prepare?
Yeah.
You have nothing?
I have nothing.
Okay, well, you're not going to be invited back on FYPod. All right, tell us about Hooters. You wrote this article, an entire article about Hooters, which is interesting for a gay.
Well, deeply problematic, Tim, to ask about Hooters, such a heteronormative institution on the 10-year anniversary of gay marriage being legalized. But I'll happily talk about it. Now, Hooters, I think, is America's safe space. I have a deep, deep love for the institution. The long short is I was hungover in a Colorado airport about 3-4 months ago, and I saw a tweet come up, as I often do, that Hooters was filing for bankruptcy. And while hungover, I pretty absentmindedly just tweeted out this story about how when I was 14 or 15, I landed in Florida a few days before the rest of my family to hang out with my grandfather prior to Thanksgiving. And he took me to Hooters. And I don't know if he quite knew what he was doing or if it was just an accident, but it definitely fucked me up a little bit. And as I relay in the piece, there was one moment of the meal where he stepped away to use the restroom and the waitress came over. And for the life of me, I can't remember exactly what she said, but it was something along the lines of, "You're perfect just the way you are, kid." And it's just been like one of the most meaningful moments of my life. And sorry, but to fast forward, I tweet that out. I board the plane.
Did we find the Hooters?
No,
waitress?
and that's what's so...
And you guys had a connection? That would have been that's the way for the story to end. She comes on the Lemon Show.
After I published the piece, Alyssa Mastromonaco...
What Hooters was it?
It would have been West Palm Beach.
What year?
It was,
I've probably been to that Hooters.
Like 2009-ish, 2010-ish.
Okay. If you know a Hooters waitress from the West Palm Beach Hooters around 2009, you contact me. I want to be the matchmaker that makes this hug happen. Cameron, you attended Hooters?
Yeah, I went a couple times with my family. I don't know. This is my conservative take. I think that people should be allowed to wear whatever they want. I think that when I see the gays that Rob Smith calls trashy for dressing like sluts, I'm like, pop off, you look great. even when I don't think that's necessarily true. I think everyone looks beautiful with their bodies. When I see women dressed slutty, I'm like, yes, queen, serve tonight, slay, I'm with you, snap, snap, snap. But in my head, when I see people dressed like that, keep in mind, I am attracted to men and women alike. I do not deny myself half of the world's pleasure.
Happy for you.
But I don't like seeing people's bodies. It's not that I don't think people should be allowed to express themselves. It's not that I don't think people should be allowed to wear what they want. I support all of that. I think that that's great. But if I'm at a Hooters, I'm like, I don't want to see that. I don't like looking at people's bodies, hot people, unattractive people. I don't care. Like, I'm not into it. I don't like being at the pool. I don't like people seeing my body. Like, I don't even like people seeing my body when I'm like hooking up with them. Like, when I'm done,
Lights
shirt
off.
goes right back on. Because I don't know. I don't like imposing that upon people.
Do you reflect on that at all? Do you think that there's something underneath that?
Well, at first I thought it was like some sort of insecurity and body dysmorphia, but then I'm like, no, I don't really like it when anybody's naked. I wish everybody was just wearing clothes.
You also
all
don't
the
like to
time.
be touched.
I also don't like to be touched. That's true.
Yeah. What I got a text. This is interesting. I got a text earlier from another one of the lefties in my life who's dunking on me over Zoran's victory. Who said that they similarly got into a fight today about where they were accused of being a conservative. That's what the text was about. Like, now I know what it feels like to be you, because they were against public sex. And I was like, yeah, I'm left of you on that. Do you think that there should be a crackdown on public sex, Cameron? Do you think there should be a legal?
What kind of public are we talking?
I don't know, the park.
The park? No, I do not think people should be allowed to have
The
sex.
dark room. What about the bathroom? What about the Hooters
Actually, you know what?
bathroom?
I'm gonna go even
Hooters
harder.
bathroom. Hooters bathroom.
Hooters bathroom. I think it's a gray area.
Gray area. What about you, Peter? Hooters bathroom. Do you think that you should be able to have sex in there?
I think
legally
I
or
am
no?
Gay
anti-sex
sex
in
in the Hooters.
family restaurants.
It's Hooters, a family restaurant. This was something that confused me about your article, I
Yeah.
do have to say, because my parents were like, Cameron. This is why I've reacted so opposite to them, and I'm so sex positive. They were I love them, got great parents, love them, perfect. Sex, we didn't talk about it though. Very uncomfortable. No birds and the bees chat. No, nothing. And so the idea of them taking me to Hooters, like, is the most insane thing I could ever imagine in my life.
Yeah.
And so the premise of your article was that it was a family restaurant, and that dads would take their sons and the gay ones, to kind of butch them up.
Yeah.
And that like happens. Like that is a real. That wasn't just a you thing. Like there are kids at Hooters.
Yeah. So I tweeted that out. Did not buy the Wi-Fi on my flight back to New York from Colorado, and when I landed, I had somewhere in the ballpark of like 300,000 likes, and just a deluge of comments from predominantly gay men, but all different types of queer people who said that the exact same thing had happened to them. And so I pitched this piece to my editor, Parker Richards, who's just phenomenal at times. The essay would not have come together without him. And he then encouraged me to reach out to a bunch of these people, interview them, and then lastly, go out to the nearest Hooters. There's only one that remains in New York City. I believe it's out in Brooklyn. And what struck me, I went out there a couple of times, it was just tons and tons of families. There were the folks you would expect, sort of the lonely looking older straight men who really just wanted someone to talk to, but just so many families. I note in the piece, there were kids so young they needed to be placated with iPads. I agree, Tim. It is sort of odd that waitresses are so scantily clad, and that just seems normalized to all the parents.
But it seems it's the gay safe space. It's like the new Friends of Dorothy is the Friends of Hooters.
That was so. In addition to interviewing a bunch of these queer dudes or queer people, I spoke to a ton of waitresses, and they said that this is not a new or novel phenomenon to them either. That they see tons of.
Well, I was a grown man. I was not at Hooters actually. I was at a down market Hooters spinoff. Forget what it was called, but it was also a wings place in Daytona Beach where women dressed like they were at Hooters, but instead of having the owls, whatever, had something else. And I took my father-in-law there the night before my child was born. She was born we were adopting her. She was born in Daytona. And that was a really memorable experience for me because he felt very comfortable in the space. me less so, but I was happy to do it. And he was sharing some things about his, after we had a couple of beers, it was a reflective moment for him, sharing some things about his past, and that was quite intimate. And so I guess Hooters has this,
at a knockoff Hooters.
I pre-gamed Toulouse at a knockoff. Have you ever been to Daytona?
I've not. Never had.
Where else do you go? Daytona is trash.
Shout out the Kasky family. My parents kept me safe from a lot of Florida. I was always curious why, growing up, I had stayed in a very small specific part of Long Island Jew, Florida, and then Fort Lauderdale, and then Miami if we got heat tickets. And then, I got a little older and I started to get an understanding of what Florida was. And I was like, oh, they were doing this to take care of me. They were doing this to protect me from a state that was like that a lot longer than people like to think it was. The Florida man didn't just happen in 2018.
Let me tell you, you didn't miss much in Daytona Beach. I was like, I was looking at the Daytona 500s there. There's got to be some cool stuff here. No, nothing. The birth of my child, though, a very memorable place. I'd always have a special place in my heart, but not a great place to get a meal. Anything else? Do you guys have anything else you want to chit chat about? Anything else happening with the youth? I've got a mailbag question here.
Go for it.
Let's get into the mailbag.
All right. Before we get to the mailbag, boomers, your questions are not good right now. Okay, I don't want your questions about what we think about politics. What is Cam's opinion about senators? Let's have a little fun. We're loosening up. We're loosening up here. We're looking for boomers to be enlightened into the lives of the youth.
Boomers, gang. First of all, I have more in common with you than I do with Gen Z anyway. Yeah. If you actually listen to FYPod regularly, you'll notice that I pull most of my cultural references from the 50s. Yeah. But boomers, when you see Gen Z do shit and you're like, what the fuck is going on with that? That's what we want to hear about.
Yeah. Ask us about that.
I don't want to talk about whether or not I think John Fetterman should be put under a conservatorship, which I do. Yes. I don't want to talk about whether or not I think John Fetterman should be locked in a room with soft foam blocks and a coloring book that's just the Israeli flag. I want to talk about your personal life. I want to talk about your sex life. Boomers, send us questions about sex. I don't like being touched, but I love talking about boomer sex.
We're going to turn the FYPod into Dan Savage's podcast real fast.
Dan's a listener. Dan, I've been on to the Dan Savage pod a couple times. He wanted me to come on but to talk about politics, and I was like, I will only come on if I can take sex questions. We can do politics, but
is Dan Savage a porn star?
No.
Oh yeah. See, your cultural references are from the 50s, but your societal familiarity with a thing that happened in the 80s and 90s is still zero. You were born in 2000.
And his name is Dan Savage.
He's the Dear Abby of gay men.
Yes.
He's a gay sex advice columnist. He was the OG gay sex advice columnist.
I've also been on. He invited me on to talk about dude bros because I'm clearly a paragon of masculinity and I can teach Democrats.
Did you get to take sex questions?
I did.
It's so fun.
Dan Savage, have me on, dude.
I'll send this to him. He will. He'll send you. So send us your boomer sex questions. Would love to weigh in on that. Robert has this. When you ask boomers where they got a piece of false news, they always say they saw it on Facebook. Is there a Gen Z version of this? Do 20-year-olds believe insane stuff like boomers do? If so, what?
TikTok, Twitter. TikTok and Twitter.
It's worse. It's worse for the Gen Zs.
Yeah.
The TikTok is insane. You're scrolling on TikTok sometimes and somebody's like, the moon's made of cheese. And
the moon that they use in the TikTok videos, AI, by the way.
They're TikToks. Somehow I got into a TikTok fucking rabbit hole of white dudes that look like Peter who go to Iran and Afghanistan and they do selfie videos and they're like, things are great here. It's better in Kabul than it is in Ohio. And Americans are so stupid. They don't understand how nice people are. Here's me eating a kebab.
Do you remember when Tucker Carlson did one of those videos in Russia?
Yes.
He was
so that's the boomer version. There's a literal equivalent of hot 25-year-old guys in Afghanistan talking about how great the Taliban's doing. So
everybody,
yeah.
Let it be known that Tim just insinuated that Tucker Carlson is hot, and you heard that here first on the episode.
No, I did not. I was talking about the TikTok boys. that are good there. They're just they're frat boys, not Tucker. Tucker's looking kind of jowly and big lately.
He has for a while.
I don't think he's on the GLP-1s.
If you're any sort of authoritarian regime around the country and you want to fly me out to make content, my price is not high. I will shill out for very little. People, when people
we will fire you if that happens, Cameron.
When people accuse you of being like a paid shill by the DNC, it's like I would so take their money.
No.
They don't fucking pay me. Like, you wouldn't take the DNC's money?
I would not take the DNC's money.
No.
Oh
I don't
my
even
God.
go on the DNC. They asked me to come on their phone calls. I don't even want to go on their phone calls. I don't want to be.
I wouldn't like take their money to do what they want, but I mean, I say stuff that people accuse me of being a DNC shill, and it's like, if I just get to keep saying what I want and the DNC wants to give me that fucking David Hogg, Ken Martin money, I'm going to take it.
Cameron, would you have been one of the Bloomberg bros? This was a real thing. When Bloomberg was running in the 2020 primary, he was paying people
like $90,000.
Yeah, real money,
money,
influencers to post. Would you have taken Mike Bloomberg's money to post about how fucking vibey and how great Mike Bloomberg's aura is? Would you have done that?
I would have tested the waters to see how subversive my performance art could have been, because if I had been paid to do Bloomberg and I could have made like a fucking full-on Tim Heidecker, Andy Kaufman bit out of it, where I got like Bloomberg pilled and I got inundated into the cult of Bloomberg and I got way too into him and started posting some like kind of Freudian sex daddy shit about Mike Bloomberg. He hadn't at the time had the accusations of sexual misconduct yet, right?
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
he did. He had, yeah.
Oh my God, dude. Okay, new rule for Democrats. If that happens, like,
his were a little flimsy, if I recall. I don't want Bloomberg's is litigious, and I actually don't. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that there were some stories out that were a little bit flimsy.
Have you called someone a horse-faced lesbian yet?
As far as anyone who is listening to this is concerned, Mike Bloomberg and Jim Clyburn have two things in common. Number one,
perfect,
supported and endorsed Andrew Cuomo. Number two, have never done anything wrong.
Besides that, it wasn't a great endorsement. Well, what a program. How do things, is this kind of similar to how things go on the Don Lemon network?
Exactly,
or is it a little
the
bit
same.
more that's more in ship shape over there?
Precisely the same tone. It's
What does Don Lemon
seamless.
say about whether or not he likes to be touched or see people's boobs?
I don't know if we ever discussed that, but I can get back to you.
Okay, great. I want to hear what Don says about seeing people's lemons.
I've got a list of questions for Don that we're going to have to, you'll have to come back with do a little Q&A sheet. It'll be like a little bonus segment.
I love it.
Because I had several things I wanted to hear I didn't know about.
This has been FYPod. I am young white Tim Miller. This is young white Don Lemon. Get ready for more coming soon. We got a crazy week. And then after that, we've got Tim on vacation when Tim is going to put me on with Bill Kristol.
Watch out.